Welcome. Today I will be paraphrasing, summarizing, and sharing for the September 19th Al-Anon readings, Encouraged to Change, and a little time for myself. We'll begin with the Serenity Prayer and 3 mindful breaths. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I'll take a minute and look this over. The question is, what can I do when feelings of shame overwhelm me? This is an amazing passage. This person is describing how their mother shamed them and led them to believe that they were a mistake rather than they made a mistake in any particular situation. Oh my gosh, it says the sense of shame drove to people pleasing. Oh my word. So this person thankfully found Al-Anon and got a sponsor and a relationship with their higher power that helped them to get rid of their shame. They changed their behavior based on their motives. If they found that if they were doing something to get someone's approval or praise, if they realized that they were doing that, they would stop themselves. This person talks about how it was all a wonderful learning experience. Today's reminder. I love it. Beautiful. So it says that we're only human. So we don't need to feel shame, and we can have a sense of self-worth by accepting the fact that we're just human beings. We're meant to make mistakes. That doesn't mean we have to be ashamed. And the quote is from Opening Our Hearts, Transforming Our Losses. So when we make mistakes, instead of shaming ourselves, we can use it as an opportunity to learn something about ourselves. So what can I do when feelings of shame overwhelm me? I like to question my shame. I use Byron Katie's 4 questions because if I realize that I'm feeling ashamed of something, I can say, why am I feeling ashamed? I'm trying to think of an example because it would be much easier that way. Okay, I've got an example. It's not a really light one either. Okay, so when my parents recently had COVID, I would call my dad every day and say, "What can I bring you?" And I would, my plan was to drop it off at his door. just so he would have the medicine and the food that he and my stepmom needed. But he always said that he didn't need anything. And they don't eat a lot. And my dad never felt so sick that, which is such a blessing, that he couldn't go out and get what he needed, um, which is a whole issue in itself that I'm not going to get into in this video. But I understand completely that that is a whole other ball of really sticky wax. But in any case, my brother was not happy with me because I live closer than my brother. My brother lives twice the distance that I live from our parents. So he was kind of like counting on, and he works full time. So he never said he was counting on me, but it's much easier for me to go. But when I said, Dad told me not to go, like he literally said, "Do not come here." And I would call every day and he would say, we have everything we need, do not come here. And he wasn't actually protecting me. He was actually, he explained later, he ended up throwing out a bunch of food, and he hates throwing out food. So do I. I hate being wasteful. I hate it. And so my dad feels the same way. So, but what I'm getting at is that was a very, like, whoever I talked to, it was 50-50. Some people thought I should have not listened to my father and left the food at the door, even if it ended up in the trash. And the other group of people thought that I was respecting my father by listening to him. And truthfully, my own father mentioned that he appreciated me listening to him, because what happened is that my brother ended up going down and bringing food. And, this whole time I'm questioning myself because obviously my dad told me he didn't need anything. So I listened to him because we talk, and I say, "Dad, look, I'm taking my cue from you. You have to tell me what you need. I'm not a mind reader, and I don't know exactly like what you're living, so you have to be clear with me, and I will do whatever I can do to help you based on what you say you need." And actually, it is a very emotional topic, because when I talked to my dad about it recently, he actually got very emotional about it, like in a really sad way. Like he cried. And and I was honored by that, um, because he's willing to be, vulnerable with me. But he said it was very difficult because they just threw out so much food during that time, because they don't eat a lot anyway, and when they were sick they didn't feel like eating. Even more, they didn't feel like eating, so like a lot of food just got thrown out. And so they had been fine the whole time. I think I did the right thing, but like when I relayed this story to my cousin, she said she would have gone. Despite what my father said, she would have gone. So, like, what's right, what's wrong? There is no right, there is no wrong. It's always up for interpretation. That's that goes with a lot of things. But any like, I don't need to feel shame about that. So how did I deal with that shame? Those little feelings of shame that were creeping up, like, oh, maybe I did the wrong thing. Maybe I'm not taking care of my dad. Maybe, like, what's wrong with me? But what I did was I talked to a couple of Al-Anon people, and I just came to the conclusion that, there's no rule book, and I did what I thought was right, and my dad kind of supported that I did the right thing. He appreciated that I listened to him, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to go against, like, it wasn't easy to listen to him because I wanted to help. I wanted to do something, but I wanted to be helpful, and it didn't seem like bringing food would be helpful. So that's all I know. when I feel shame. And that wasn't something that I was able to use the 4 questions of Byron Katie with. I'm trying to think of another example. I can't think of one, but um, like if someone says something to me and I think it's mean, I will write down so and so was mean for doing the Byron Katie questions, and then how do I know? Do I know for sure that it was mean? And by the second question, I already know that I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to feel shame because, um, like if I think that what they said was mean and it's true, and I need to be ashamed of that, because if I remember my partner saying something and me being upset, but I don't remember for the life of me what it was, and I remember writing it down. And by the time I got to the second question, how can I know that it's true? I was like, it's not true. I'm just being overreacting. I'm overthinking it. It's not a big deal. And that's the case most of the time. I don't know if that made any sense. But basically, when feelings of shame overwhelm me, I rely on the tools of the program to get through it, even though Byron Katie is not a tool of the program. She is very spiritual, and she does refer to Al-Anon principles constantly. And I find that very helpful. It's just to question the thought, and then I realize that the thought is just false, and I don't have to think about it anymore, and it disappears. It just goes away because it's got no power anymore. All right, we're moving on. Holy moly. All right, so this is about step 8. When we make a list of all the people we have harmed. And it's saying that when we work our 4th step, this actually helps us in working our 8th step. Because our character defects can lead to behavior that makes us feel like we need to make amends to people. It's saying that we can find patterns of behavior that make us put more names on our list. And it's saying that sometimes we have really good intentions, but we end up hurting people, and we need to put those people on our list too. And once we do all this, the end goal is to relate to other people in a healthier way and to feel better about our behavior. Today's reminder: our 8th step work helps us let go of guilt and regret. We need to remember to be gentle with ourselves while we're working this step. And the quote is from an All Our Affairs. By step 8, we are showing that we are willing to acknowledge that our actions have consequences. Yes, I first worked my steps with a therapist because I didn't trust anyone to be my sponsor, because I figured I'm paying my therapist to keep all my information confidential. So I felt better about that. And then eventually, I trusted someone enough to ask them to be my sponsor, and I worked the steps again with my sponsor, and that's the sponsor I have now. Even though this person's been my sponsor for probably close to 10 years. Wow. That's so cool. So, um, if you're holding back on working the steps, there are workbooks in Al-Anon that you can use in case you don't feel comfortable working with someone else. You can go through it. Like I have I think it's called Pathways to Progress. It's like a spiral bound workbook. I use that. I actually use that with my sponsor, but you can do it on your own. And then if you find someone that you trust, that you feel comfortable working the steps with, then I feel like that's a really good natural progression. And if you don't need to do it on your own first, I think that's fantastic. I'm very sensitive to the idea that um, a lot of people can't do that at first. So if you can just work with a person and go through the steps, that is fantastic. And I would definitely do that. Working the steps is worth all, everything that you go through in working the steps is worth it because what you get back is so much more. We'll close out with the serenity prayer, followed by 3 mindful breaths. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Sending you love. Take care.